a chance to dive a little bit more into the standards and see how they really work together. In this next section, we're going to take a look at some of the specific math skills that are taught in small groups. We'll discuss benchmarks, and then we'll think through how we might plan a small group. Before we dive in, I want to give a quick reminder that the standards progression is listed in the Essentials Gradebook. Right here, this is the standards progression. When you come to the home page, click the small plus sign to see the data. You then click on the gray box, which are the standards, and it will open the small group lessons and the checks for understanding. Remember, the small groups are the light blue, and the checks for understanding are the dark blue. Then you can click on those, and you can actually see the lessons where you'll teach the students, and you can click on the little book right here, and that'll actually open up the lesson that has all of the material that you'll need to teach that specific skill. Then, of course, depending on how the students do, you will check the boxes to mark their progress. We can talk about this a little bit more if you have questions in our live session. Now, let's dive into some of the specific skills and see how they really come to life in small groups. Quantification is an important foundational skill. It is the child's ability to determine and explore the quantity of objects. In order to understand quantification, children must first master matching one-to-one. Here is an example of a quantification lesson. First, you would say, I have a set of 2 bears. We have a set of 3 bears. Now you get to try to make a set. That would be the student's turn. Note, the end of the year essential standard goal for pre-K3 is that students should be able to create sets of up to 10. So this is something that students will be working on throughout the year. Think, what is a way that you could incorporate quantification skills into your day outside of small groups? We'll be coming back to this when we talk about transitions. Here's another example of a standard in action. Comparative value is determining that a group has more, less, or the same amount. In order to understand comparative value, students must have a mastery of one-to-one, row counting, and quantification. Below is an example of a comparative value lesson. So you might tell students, which row is longer? That is a group that has more. There are more red bears. That means that is longer. There are fewer blue bears. You can explain it a little bit more for your students if they need some more clarification. Addition and subtraction word problems come towards the end of the number concepts. This competency can be taught after students have mastered all of the other competencies. Here, we're going to review what addition and subtraction word problems might look like in practice. Note on the standards progression the differentiated goals for pre-K3 and pre-K4. Addition is joining 2 groups together and counting to see how many there are all together. In ECR, students do not perform addition with numerals such as 2 plus 2 equals 4. Instead, they use manipulatives and a part-part whole map called an addition machine to solve addition problems. So we might start off by telling the students that we will use the addition machine. Here I have 2 blue cubes and 2 gold cubes. I will press the on button to add these to 2 groups. Now, count how many I have all together. 1, 2, 3, 4. When I turned the addition machine on, I added 2 groups. I have 4 all together. That's just a short example of how an addition strategies lesson might go, but hopefully that gives you an idea of the standards in action. Throughout the year, students will move along this math progression as they continue to master more advanced competencies. Throughout the year, you may wonder, or parents may ask, if their students are on track. You do have access to student reports in the Data app, so we can talk about this a little bit more when we meet in person, but I just wanted to give a quick example of how the skills progression is presented to families if you haven't had a chance to see it yet. Now, before we dig into the last part of our module, which is transitions, we're going to take a look at a small group math lesson and in the discussion board, talk about how we might plan this lesson based on the students in our class. So you're going to review the ECR quantification lesson that is linked below in the module. You will identify the standard, introduce a model, and the practice. Then I want you to think how you might differentiate this lesson for students in your classroom. I'm looking forward to seeing your posts on the board.